Hi, and welcome back to my channel. And continuing making the Disney princess dresses, I am now creating Cinderella. In chronological order, she is actually the second Disney princess in the long line of princesses. As always, I create my own patterns using my mannequin. With this pattern, however, I do have to change it later on because I could not get the sleeves or the straps working properly on this. So those straps that come up off the top of the bodice here, I do eventually cut those off and change it around just a little bit. And for the bodice, I cut out 8 pieces for this bodice. For the skirt, I cut a waistband that's about 5 inches wide. I will be folding it half later on to create the waistband. The skirt will be a full circle skirt. It will go over the new hoop skirt I made a couple weeks ago. For the hoop skirt measurements, I do use a website to calculate all my information. I will leave it in the description box below if you want to take a look. For the circle skirt measurements, I do use a website to calculate all my information. If you would like the link to that calculator, I will leave it in the box below. Also for the skirt, I cut 2 more panels out of this mesh material, and it will just give a little bit more softness to the polycotton. For the bodice, I was going to put the mesh material on that as well. As you can see here, I did already have it put on there. However, I do remove it later on. But for the bodice construction, I put the front center seams together and sew those together, and then I sew the side seams up. This will have a separating zipper in the back of it for its closure. For the sleeve poofs, I just made a simple rectangle and I sewed 2 channels, one on each side, and inserted some elastic. The material I chose wasn't that structured, so I do add interfacing in the middle to add some stiffening to it, because I also need that for when I add the dress hooks to attach the skirt to the bottom. And if this was an adult size, I would actually be adding a middle layer of canvas with boning channels in it. And I'm not using iron-on interfacing, so that's why I'm putting this layer together separately. And once the 3 layers are done, I go ahead and sew together the layer of interfacing and the lining of the bodice. And with those 2 pieces as one, I go ahead and take the other bodice and I do right sides to right sides, and I only sew on the bottom. And with that, I go ahead and clip the point and clip the into the seam allowance around the curves. The sleeves or shoulder poofs were a bit tricky. I had to sandwich them in between the 2 layers of the bodice material and very, very carefully sew along the top and not catching the middle part of the elastic on the shoulder poofs. Basically, I just took one end of the shoulder poof and put it where I wanted on the front of the bodice, sewed it in between, just in that one small section. Then I took the other side and did the same thing. And then I had to stretch that elastic so I could go around the curve of the arm. This took me so many tries to figure out, but the way I explained it was the easiest way I figured out how to do it. And with the shoulder poofs attached finally, I just went ahead and closed up the rest of the top seam. And like the bottom, I go ahead and clip into the seam allowance. I clip all the curves so it lays nice and flat. And with the poofs on, it's time for the zipper, which is the last step of the bodice. And all I do is use a separating zipper. I cut it down to the size I need, make a new top stopper for the zipper, and go ahead and sew that in between the lining and the outside fabric. For the skirt, I take one of the panels that I cut out and I cut it in half to make a back seam, and I do that for the mesh material as well. And then I just sew up the two side seams. For the waistband, I took that strip of lighter blue fabric so it matched in with the skirt poofs that I'm going to make, and I put interfacing in there, and then I folded it in half, and I'm taking the mesh skirt and the main fabric skirt and I'm finding the middle, and I will be gathering it into this waistband. With the skirts attached to one side, I go ahead and fold over the other side of the waistband, and then I hand stitch it down. Once the waistband is secured on, I go ahead and take each skirt, and I do leave about a 6 to 8 inch gap at the top, and I sew the skirt's back seam together. To hem this big old skirt, the mesh one I do not have to hem since it will not fray, but the lighter blue one I do. I go ahead and by eye fold in about an inch from the bottom of the skirt up and iron it down. And what's a princess without a lot of lace? I take this 3-inch wide lace, fold it in half, and as I'm hemming the skirt, I also attach this lace to the bottom of it as well. Now the last thing, which is the skirt poofs. I pretty much made them exactly like I did on my Princess Peach dress, except for this time I had enough material that I lined them so there is no frayed edges. And I just basically draped the fabric on the mannequin and skirt and positioned them how I wanted them. And once I cut it off the skirt, it came out to be this like jar pot shape. And here I'm just checking to make sure that's exactly what I want. With the two jar-shaped pieces, I go ahead and sew them along the edge and then flip them right sides out. And then I go ahead and fold them up how I want them again. And this time I do pin them together so I can sew that shape. And with those together, I go ahead and hand stitch those onto the waistband. For the gloves, I use this mesh material that I used for the skirt. They will be fingerless gloves, except for the middle finger will have a piece of elastic around it just to keep them down. And all I do is sew up the seams and then attach the elastic. And then I took just a plain old headband I got from the Dollar Tree and painted it to the correct color I needed. And with a 1-inch thick black ribbon, the costume is done. I had video of her twirling in it, and if you've ever seen Cinderella at Disneyland or Disney World, it twirls just like her skirt. But I lost the video of it. I have no idea what happened to it. But the dress came out really, really pretty, and she looks absolutely stunning in this outfit. And with this, I hope to show you that you do not need to buy expensive materials to make something pretty. And with that, please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next week. Bye!